Welcome, sir. He's also a member of Parliament, accompanied by presidential staffers from the Office of the President. Thank you for being here. Thank you, sir. His entry will be followed by that of the Prime Minister of Sao Tome and Principe, Excellency Ibrahim Ramos, and the Vice President of Ghana, Excellency Professor Okudzato+Burkina. You're welcome, Your Excellency. Professor Okudzato+Burkina, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. Thank you so much, Madam. You're welcome. Also welcoming Excellency Ibrahim Ramos, Prime Minister of Sao Tome and Principe. Excellency, you're welcome. Thank you. Please be seated while we wait the arrival of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana. We'd like to apologize to our French speakers for the oversight of not getting French translation. Chief of Ghana, His Excellency Prez.Mahama. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, let's put our hands together. You're welcome, sir. We remain standing for the national anthem. Also happy to have his General Secretary, Fifi Fiabikwete, here with us as well. If you are launching an African political party initiative, the governing party in the country you are hosting it is your host. So if you have any problem, talk to the two of them. They will help you out. I'd like to acknowledge a few of our other friends. Privileged to have the former Prime Minister of Côte d'Ivoire, Excellency Pascal Affi N'Guessan. Thank you, sir. We're also very privileged to have a former Minister of Justice and former Foreign Affairs Minister, Sao Tome and Principe, Excellency Edith Tenhua, here with us. Thank you, Madam. We're very, very happy to have the former Finance Minister of Côte d'Ivoire, Honorable Dr. Justine, sir, the leader of the Gambia Democratic Congress Party, Honorable Mama Kande. You're welcome. Now, we're happy to announce also from Angola, the leader of the National Union for Total Independence of Angola, UNITA Party, and Vice President of the Democratic Union of Africa, Mr. Rafael Masanga Sakaita Savimbi, here with us. We are very privileged to have from Burkina Faso the Honorable Anita Sephora Traore, member of the Legislative Assembly and General Secretary of the Network of Women Parliamentarians from Burkina Faso. Okay, at the airport, let's just give the applause. It will be streamed to her. Wonderful. A few more to go. We are privileged to have the Federal Secretary for Democratic Convention of African Peoples, Madame Akako Ahianon Essi Jibodi, here with us. You sound like you're from Ghana. Be that as it may. We're also introducing the Excellency Alexander Grantin Trakwa, former Ambassador of Ghana to Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Comoros, who has a special role to play here with us. Thank you, sir. I'd like to now invite to introduce our chairperson, Lawyer Stephanie Oulaku, to introduce our chairperson for today's program. Please welcome Lawyer Stephanie Oulaku. Thank you.
Prez.Mahama, the Vice President, Professor Okudzato+Burkina, Your Excellencies, the Advisory Board of the African Governance Center, distinguished members of the international diplomatic community.
Institutionalization of multi-party democracy as the backbone of inclusive governance. The African story of democracy is a culmination of the diverse voices that reflect the aspirations of the African people. However, democracy is not self-sustaining. It requires strong institutions, constructive dialogue amongst political parties, and governance systems that prioritize national and continental development over short-term political gains. For Africa to achieve sustainable growth, our nations must go beyond electoral cycles and party politics. We must work towards long-term national and continental development plans that transcend political differences. This is what the African Political Parties Initiative seeks to do. By providing a platform for parties across the continent to engage, the initiative will ensure the sharing of democracy's best practices and contribute to the development of policies that support Africa's collective transformation. The vision of Africa's great leaders lives on, as today we take a bold step forward with the launch of the African Political Parties Initiative, a testament to the unbreakable and resilient African democratic spirit. The African Political Parties Initiative is a commitment to 1. Enhancing political dialogue and cooperation across parties and borders. 2. Strengthening democratic institutions to ensure stability and effective governance. 3. Developing national and continental economic strategies that promote sustainable development. And 4. Fostering leadership that is focused on the long-term prosperity of Africa. The time to act is now. No more waiting, no more barriers. The African Political Parties Initiative is not just a movement for change. It is a call to action, a demand for leaders across the continent to secure Africa's future. The moment is here. Will you rise to it? Join us, support this initiative, and be part of Africa's transformation. Together, we shape the future of governance. Together, we build Africa.
Thank you. We'd like to now invite one of our foremost poets, Nana Sassi, to bring us a message.
Good evening, Africa. In Africa. Good evening, Africa. It is only an urgent matter that makes the hunter drag the lion all the way from the savannah to come and divide its fare. It simply then says, it is an urgent matter that spares neither king nor God. Once you steal a man's faith or his confidence, then he is done for. And so I strongly believe in something. Otherwise you get served anything. I believe in manners. I was told that when you enter an elder's house, you greet, and then you ask for audience. When it is granted, you speak. And so I salute you, my elders, revered greybeards, backs without which there is no front, tongues without which there is no song, fire without which we'll have nothing to cook our food. I learned that the beard is the broom with which our elders gather wisdom. And so my beard counts for nothing. Because my elders rinse their beards in the dew to lose the pigment of youth. But when you meet my elders who took no beards, mind you, they might have picked all of life's experiences. Do I have your permission to speak? Do I have your permission to speak? My elders, do I have your permission to speak? Soyez le bienvenu au Ghana, la porte d'entrée de l'Afrique. Welcome to this place, this crossroads of dreams, this market of 9 moons, where in the beginning the Creator said, let there be light, and there was water. So we offer you water to wash your feet of the traveler's dust, and we offer you water to wash your brow of the traveler's heat, to wash your hands of all the sins you might have committed, and then water to quench your thirst. Not your thirst of water itself, but your thirst of knowledge. Every traveler is indeed in search of knowledge. And so wherever you sit, wherever you come from, your seat was meant for you. This matter is urgent. A life is kept up or down just around the place of a thumb, the same one with which we will tie a knot. It simply means that when a matter is difficult and we cannot unknot it, we go to the proverbial old lady, and so we gather from around the continent. We come in blocks, for we are children of the same womb. But of course, we cannot all wear this smock. For when it comes to the matter of smocks, yours had better not be more colorful than that of the master weaver. And so every man knows and holds his place. My people, when the chief steps out, even riding on the back of an antelope, an umbrella has to be held over his head. It simply says, the skin of the animal has its place, and the height of the king also has its place. And so every man holds their place, and that is how our community keeps going around. Abu, 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 Via. And so the hunter's cock is crowing. Does not mean the morning of the blacksmith is not here. The cock that crows to wake up the whole neighborhood belongs to one household. And so, after the elections are won, my people, the next target is nation building. But you see, while the race is being run, I am just here to ensure, by giving you stiff opposition, that you offer your very best. And so you see, if all of us wanted to wear the same smock, we would constantly be in a tussle. If all the ideas were in one head, of course, we would need all of us to hold it this way and that way, and Africa would have no place to lay its head and dream. My people, I am a child, learning the ropes of the world and the ways of my people. And as I said, of finding something to believe in, it is important that we have divergent views. When we stand at the crossroads, each man passing to his own homestead, then we only realize that we are a collective, feeding from the same pot, and we truly each hold the other of the other in trust. I take this again. When we face our backs at the crossroads, each man departing to his homestead, then we realize that we feed from a big pot, with each person holding the part of the other in trust. And so we simply disagree to agree, agree to disagree, whichever way you choose to look at it, my people. Now, it is time to consolidate our efforts. Let us go and bring money. Money is important. Money is good. Money can never be abundant than the trees that bring us the leaves. And so money can never be more than the leaves on all the trees in Africa. My people, politics is the place where we find leadership. Politics is that place where I believe that all our paths to God lie within us, but it takes one man to hold the torch and lead the path, and then we all follow. Abu, Abu, Abu. And so I keep saying that sleep is not for the weak, my people. If sleep were for the weak, all of us will not sleep, but sleep is for the strong. While we sleep, dreams are the preserve of the chosen. And when we sleep, and those who dare to dream will dream, we choose to wake up and then fit to our dreams. And so it is meet. The vision says that all political parties in Africa, when we sit together, then we can prove to the people that violence is not an option. It is simply an increment in our ideas. Please refine your argument. Do not raise your voice at me, my people, for that is how a nation works. Otherwise, an old lady would never be sound in the ring of kings. You realize that even in the gathering of the elders, there is an elder, the king. And so, my people, I came on beating Abaja from the Volta region of Ghana, wearing a smock all the way from up north. These are royal shorts from the account, and these slippers are those of travelers worn by kings from different corners. I am fit to talk about Ghana. I am fit to talk about Africa. Abu, Abu, Abu. We are simply fingers on a hand. And so you are told that simply makes me shorter. And all the things you miss, I bring up. And so, you stand in front, I stand behind. Alpha and Omega simply means we are children of one God. Africa. Where do we go from here? Please, give me a smile. Can I have a smile? Le sourire, le rire aussi, c'est l'esprit du corps, c'est la parole du cœur. That is what we need. We need a smile. Africa, it is urgent. And in these times when things are being reset, like a sound engineer sits back and brings all the buttons down and begins to recalibrate, says, we need to do things differently so that we will attain the different results that we aim to achieve. The music will remain the same, but we dictate the steps. For truly, we pay the purpose. Africa, my finger is up, and I say the time is now. The cock of the blacksmith is crowing does not mean the hunter's warning is not here. My words are heavy. It is simply because as a people, our dreams are heavy. And so the king might come, riding on the back of the antelope, but an umbrella will be held over his head. My people, before I leave, let us learn a lesson from the mosquito. General, I salute you. The mosquito is like a national agenda. The mosquito, the smallest amongst us, makes even the great and mighty ones to lose sleep. You see, calling in everyone's heart, even the greatest of us will sit up and clap, not because they truly want to applaud, because they are denied sleep. The matter is urgent. So if all of us would wake up to pursue the mosquito, he says that even if you kill me, 1,000 more will show up. And so my people, our ancestors came to teach us wisdom. When you sit up next in the middle of the night, thinking, rambling, thoughts, and ideas, it should not be of how to win just the next election, not just to win the heart of the people, but really how do we find the next path to our bumper harvest. The righteous king who sips communion wine from the calabash. My people, I came to pour libation not to our ancestors, but to live beings, elevated ones like you and you and you. Thank you for making me survive this matter and living here with my neck intact. I will be back.
And what most of you may not know is that our vice president is an English professor, and he was trained in the Department of English of the University of Ghana. I'm sure he'll get an A for this one. A round of applause, please.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, and my dear mother, who has helped me in this journey of politics, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Sao Tome and Principe, Your Excellency, Americo Ramos, Your Excellencies, Honorable Jeffrey Davy, the Chair of the African Governance Center Advisory Council, Your Excellency, Honorable Okudzato+, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Ghana, Your Excellency, the Chairman General Asiedu Nketia, the National Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Your Excellency, Honorable Fifi Kwekte, the General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, distinguished guests from representative political parties, distinguished leaders and ambassadors from various countries represented here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My task here today is quite simple, and I think that the chair of the governance board has given a detailed outline together with my colleague, Dr. Nelson Opon, on the vision of the African Political Parties Initiative. They've also aligned the vision of the Africa Governance Center and what it seeks to achieve. And I think that to proceed, I would like to just focus on the strategic objectives of the African Political Parties Initiative. The Africa Governance Center, considering the importance of political parties and the role they play in the development of countries, deemed it important to institute this important initiative to really look at strengthening political parties across the continent, supporting them to develop democratic institutions within their own political parties, but also in their national engagements. We also set out to promote intra-party dialogue, recognizing that no single party can solve the challenges of a country. We require the consensus building on certain fundamental issues, which requires that from time to time, we engage each other. We agree to disagree, but we agree to collectively develop our nations. We also seek to establish platforms for political parties to engage in policy-driven leadership and capacity building. We also recognize the important role of youth and women in our political leadership. And so therefore, in our programming, you would see that there's a lot of emphasis on the role of youth and women. We also want to take a bold step of charging political parties on the continent to not just focus on winning elections and neglecting their impact in the governance of their countries. We believe that for any country to strategically grow and position itself, the foundations of the political parties that play in that democratic space is very important. And so we want political parties to take the charge of supporting the African Union in its Agenda 2063. The question we are asking is how are political parties positioning themselves to lead this charge towards effective governance and sustainable development for our people, our nation, and our future. I would proceed to the strategic implementation, the implementation strategy of the African Political Parties Initiative. We recognize that political parties are core to the project we are undertaking. And so therefore, as an executive council or an advisory body of the Africa Governance Center, we cannot purport to know what political parties seek to achieve on their own. And we believe that the participation of the parties themselves is quite important. We would see that a number of parties have given their support to this initiative, even before its launch. We received over 70 support letters from major political parties across the continent and the Caribbean. In the implementation strategy, therefore, we look at the institutional development and the governance structure of the African Political Parties Initiative. We recognize that there is the need for a secretariat, which coincidentally, the advisory board and the executive council unanimously supported that it be hosted in Accra, Ghana. We also would be constituting the steering committee, which the executive secretary of the initiative would be outlining, for the strategic initiatives that are going to be undertaken under this project. The first steering committee that would be constituted would deal with the organization and management and leadership of the annual African Political Parties Summit, which really would be a convergence of the major parties on the continent coming together to strategize on how to offer better leadership in service of the people of Africa. We would also be establishing a steering committee for the Youth in Politics Forum and a steering committee for the Women Political Leadership Summit. There would also be the establishment of thematic councils and working groups on key issues that are determined by the steering committee. We recognize that the capacity of leaders in the service of their countries and of their political parties is very important. And so capacity building and leadership development is core in the strategies we want to deploy. We also want to look at policy research, advocacy, and knowledge sharing, And this would be a cross-cutting theme across the many activities that we would be undertaking. We know that the NDC championed this under the leadership of Professor Nana Jinoko-Pajima, Your Excellency, and the chairman of the Manifesto Committee, Professor Danso championed this within the NDC, where we saw a group of technical experts looking at various research proposals and really positioning the NDC to be a very competitive force in terms of policy alternatives for the country of Ghana, and positioning the party to winning its election in the 2024 general elections. We also expect that there would be a lot of engagements, public engagements with different institutions, international institutions, and governments in achieving the objectives of the initiative. And last but not the least is the question of monitoring, evaluation, and impact assessment. There has been a lot of conversation around the feasibility of the project we seek to undertake. But we believe that unless we start and until we put our work to test, we wouldn't know whether the naysayers are right or wrong. And so we have commenced the establishment of monitoring and evaluating systems to ensure that the projects we are about to undertake are one that have impact. And last but not the least, I'd like to talk about the key events and activities under the African Political Parties Initiative. The main flagship program that would be undertaken under the African Political Parties Initiative is the annual African Political Parties Summit, a summit that seeks to bring a cross-section of Africa's political parties to support the Africa Governance Center in finding ways to address the issues of governance, leadership, and economic development on the continent. Outside of this main activity that the Africa Governance Center would be spearheading, we have a number of key initiatives that would also be undertaken. We have the African Youth and Politics Forum, which would look at bringing young people, young parliamentarians, young ministers, young leaders from various political parties across the continent to deliberate on youth-related issues and strategize for the future. We also would have the annual Women Political Leadership Summit, which seeks to achieve a similar goal of really strengthening the role and impact of women in politics. We also seek to undertake the African Political Parties Policy and Strategy Forum. We want to push for political parties to begin to prioritize the conversations around policy development and even strategy for winning elections. And I'm sure that for some of those strategy sessions, we would have to keep certain parties out because their counterparts would not want them in the room. We would also look at the issue of leadership training and capacity building. We believe that, yes, we are capable, but we cannot stop learning. And so we would be engaging on a number of leadership academies on politics, really looking at political leadership on the continent. And then also, there has been a call, a clarion call, for our engagements with our colleagues in the diaspora, particularly the Caribbean region. Indeed, the Africa Governance Center has on its advisory board His Excellency P.J. Patterson, the longest serving Prime Minister of Jamaica, who has been working actively with His Excellency Jeff Radebe to make this vision a success. We will be having engagement with our diasporan parties. There has been some initial engagements on this, And we hope that this would be an opportunity for us to share our common values and begin to build our connections, historic connections, and see how that helps in driving our development as a continent. And last but not the least, the very controversial political parties governance index. We think that it is important that we begin to assess ourselves as parties, to look at our systems and whether they are responsive to the needs of our people, whether our political parties themselves, as they make a case for democracy, are themselves practicing and championing the values of democracy. We want to see whether political parties are giving room for a lot more women to serve within those political parties. What undertakings are these political parties engaged in to promote the participation of women, to ensure inclusive representation, and also to ensure that within the convention of political party engagement, we are not just patting ourselves in the back for the sake of it, but we truly believe that democratic governance is the only way to go. And so on this note, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the final words on what it is that the political parties initiative seeks to achieve. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Ghana, Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, please permit me to stand on the protocols earlier established by previous speakers so we can save some more time. I bring you warm greetings from the National Democratic Congress, the ruling party which is hosting this event. Tonight, as we gather here for the official launch of the African Political Parties Summit, we stand on the precipice of history. We are here not just as representatives of political parties, but as architects of a new political dispensation for Africa, one that seeks to redefine governance, democracy, and continental collaboration. 30 years ago, Ghana embarked on a profound journey of democratic renewal. It was a period of rediscovery where we laid the foundations of a governance system built on the values of unity, stability, and development. The National Democratic Congress was at the forefront of this transformation, driven by an unyielding belief that democracy is not an abstract idea, but a lived experience, one that must deliver tangible progress to the people. Our motto, our very identity as a party, is rooted in these values. But as we look beyond our borders, we recognize that the progress of Ghana or any of our single African nations cannot be achieved in isolation. Our destinies are intertwined. The future of Africa, its economic prosperity, its political resilience, and its cultural renaissance will be determined by our ability to work together as a continent. This is why tonight is so significant. Too often, political parties have been sidelined in discussions about Africa's transformation. We have spoken of state-to-state cooperation, of intergovernmental engagements, of regional economic communities. But what of the political entities that shape the very policies and governance framework of these states? The reality is this. The ideological foundations of governance in Africa are not built in the government offices. They are built within political parties. It is in our political organizations that manifestos are drafted, governance philosophies are shaped, and leadership for national and continental progress is nurtured. Yet, for too long, the role of political parties in shaping Africa's future had been neglected in our broader discussions on development. That is why the National Democratic Congress celebrates this initiative by the African Governance Center. This is not merely an event. It is the birth of a platform that has the power to transform Africa's political and governance landscape. It is a bold acknowledgement that sustainable development cannot be achieved without the active participation of the political forces that drive decision-making across the continent. We are here because we believe in the power of dialogue. We are here because we understand that the lessons of one nation can serve as a guiding light for another. The experiences of Ghana's democratic evolution, our triumphs, our setbacks, our resilience can offer valuable insights to our brothers and sisters across the continent. Equally, we are eager to learn from the diverse political experiences of our fellow African nations. Africa is not a monolith. Our histories, political systems, and democratic journeys vary. But what unites us is our shared aspiration for an Africa that is self-reliant, an Africa that is prosperous, and an Africa that stands tall on the global stage, not as a subject of external influences, but as a strong and independent bloc capable of shaping its own destiny. As we anticipate the upcoming African Political Parties Summit in July, the NDC stands ready to play its part in ensuring its success. We reaffirm our commitment to working closely with the Africa Governance Center and all other stakeholders to make this gathering a landmark moment in Africa's political history. This summit is not just a meeting of politicians. It is a forum for visionaries, for change makers, for those who dare to dream of an Africa that is governed by leaders who are accountable, progressive, and deeply committed to the well-being of their people. Let us seize this opportunity. Let us commit ourselves not just to dialogue, but to action. Let us move beyond rhetoric and create a framework that ensures that political parties in Africa are not just vehicles for power, but institutions of governance, excellence, integrity, and people-centered leadership. May this be the beginning of a new era of political cooperation in Africa. May our discussions be guided by wisdom, and may our collective efforts lead to the unity and progress we all seek. May God bless our beloved continent, and may Africa rise to reclaim its rightful place in the world. I thank you very much.
We're grateful. Let's put hands together one more time for the chairman of the NDC, Honorable Johnson Asiedu Nketia, affectionately called General Mosquito.
Of democracy. An example that manifested through its recent election in 2024. The people of Ghana indeed proved to the entire world that their supreme resolve for a peaceful election and the transition was in order to protect their very future. This is very respectable. Ladies and gentlemen, it is by no means a coincidence that the launch of the African Political Party Initiative is in the context of the celebration of independence of a nation that cannot be left out of the story of Africa's fight against colonial rule and oppression. Ghana's independence signaled a movement that accelerated the journey of achieving the political emancipation of other African countries. As a result, what we do today is praise to the founding father of this nation, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Upon whose memory we draw strength today and in renewing our call for unity and increased collaboration amongst ourselves. As a Prime Minister of Sao Tome and Principe and a member of the Independent Democratic Action Party, it is my opinion that this initiative will make great progress in uniting the African people in intensifying their effort to achieve a better life for the people of Africa. In light of immense potential this initiative has for the progress of Africa, on behalf of Independent Democratic Action Party and the government of Sao Tome and Principe that I lead, I pledged our unflinching support in working with the Africa Governance Center as it prepares for the main APPI summit in July, where I hope to join you in discussing issues of mutual interest. And so, permit me, Mr. Chairperson, to also use this platform to bring other political parties within the continent to position themselves to be a part of this great initiative. I thank you all for the warm reception in Ghana, and I look forward to even better days of increased partnership between Sao Tome and Principe, Ghana, and the entire African continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Let's put hands together one more time for him.
The chair of AGC, Honorable Jeff Tamsangare, former Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development and former Minister of Energy of South Africa. Your Excellency, John Prez.Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana. Your Excellency, Professor Nana Okudzato+Burkina, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, and one that I was privileged to host whilst I was serving in Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, Américo dos Ramos da Costa, Prime Minister of Sao Tome and Principe, all existing protocols are duly observed for the sake of time. It is my singular honor to introduce the first gentleman of the land and the man of the moment, who is our keynote speaker for this momentous occasion of the launch of the Africa Political Parties Initiative. Mr. Chairman, our guest speaker emulates the worthy characteristics of a true statesman and is an exemplar of integrity who has been committed to serving Ghana. One key thing to note about the keynote speaker from his memoirs, my first coup d'etat, which I was privileged to be present at the launch in New York, is his remarkable sense of prediction that he was called to serve his country. In the book, he stated, and I quote, "When I look back on my life, it is clear to me that this moment marked the awakening of my consciousness. It changed my life and influenced all moments that followed." Quote ends. It is of no surprise, therefore, that he started his first stint in politics as an assembly member before contesting as a parliamentary candidate for the Bole Bamboi constituency in 1987 on the ticket of the NDC. His Excellency John Dramani-Mahama since then served as a member of parliament from 1998 to 2009, a period within which he also assumed the roles of deputy minister and later minister of communications. The man of the moment was selected to be the running mate of our late president, Professor John Evans Atamios, and upon his untimely demise, had to steer the affairs of this nation as president until he won the mandate of the people of the Republic of Ghana in the 2012 elections. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, even after losing 2016 elections, President Mahama continued to play a pivotal role on the continent as a mediator and peace speaker, and was often at the forefront of Ghana's international relations, and has been recognized severally for his style of relentless leadership. The Global Leadership and Economic Impact Award by the University of Virginia and the African Political Leader of the Year Award were conferred on him in 2012, 2022, and 2017 respectively. This time, he is back as President of the Republic on a mission of resetting and laying the framework for transformational impact in Ghana. He is a member of the Assemblies of God Church and is married to Her Excellency Mrs. Mahama, with whom he has 5 children. Without any further ado, and with a resounding applause, may I, at this juncture, invite His Excellency John Dramani-Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, to deliver his speech.
Thank you. Thank you. Kindly resume your seats. Let me recognize my Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Professor J. Nano Kwajima, and recognize our guest, His Excellency Americo Ramos da Costa, Prime Minister of Sao Tome, and our chairperson, Jeffrey David. Thank you, you're all welcome. And let me say, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, participants, in the interest of time. On behalf of the government of the people of Ghana, let me extend a warm welcome to all of you, especially the chairman of the advisory board of the African Governance Center, His Excellency Jeffrey David, and the visiting delegation to our dear country. I further wish to extend a warm and heartfelt welcome to everybody participating in this momentous event. To all our distinguished guests who have traveled from different parts of Africa and beyond to be part of this significant occasion of the official launch of the African Political Parties Initiative being championed by the African Governance Center, I say Akwaba, which in our traditional language means welcome. Your visit coincides beautifully with our 68th independence anniversary, which is also a poignant reminder of our nation's journey towards self-governance and our abiding commitment to uphold the values of freedom and justice. Hence, as we invite you to join in our celebration, we're also honored for the opportunity to restate our Pan-African appeal to reflect on the possibilities of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. This is a moment of collective celebration, but most importantly, it is also a moment of reflection. Indeed, I'm honored to be given the responsibility to deliver the keynote address for the launch of the African Political Parties Initiative. The African Political Parties Initiative is an important platform by the African Governance Center to advance inter-party dialogue and multi-party democracy across Africa. According to the influential African philosopher Achille Mbembe in his book Necropolitics, he says politics is simply the exercise of reason in the public sphere, as it evokes the search for freedom and reaching of agreement with the collective through communication and recognition. Mbembe's observation reflects a long-standing Ghanaian orientation to politics and society, which maintains that the individual person cannot be separated from the ties of his community membership. Yet in the face of competitive politics, it is often easy for political parties to lose sight of the imperative to cultivate a political system that rests on consensual politics in ways anticipated by our national constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, the African Governance Center's endeavor to build cross-party engagement and capacity building, which is not only devoid of the usual partisan bickering, but also motivated by a desire to find common ground based on an adherence to the collective call to position politics as a driver for positive transformation, is therefore a refreshing initiative. I'm also pleased to witness the wide range of support and goodwill that the APPI initiative has attracted from across the African region and globally. It is my pleasure to also voice support for the APPI and to congratulate the team of the African Governance Center for this great initiative. Across our continent, too many political parties have become instruments of division rather than forces for national cohesion and development. Too often we have witnessed our politics reduced to a contest of personalities rather than a contest of ideas. And in far too many countries, the pursuit of power has overshadowed the urgent need for economic and social transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest challenges facing Africa today is the crisis of political leadership. While democracy has expanded across the continent over the past 3 decades, governance has not necessarily been strengthened. The proliferation of elections has not always translated into economic growth, improved public services, or greater social stability for our people. In many countries, the transition from one government to another has been accompanied by policy reversals, economic setbacks, and institutional instability, making it difficult for Africa to achieve long-term development objectives. If we do not confront these challenges with boldness and honesty, our democratic systems will become fragile, vulnerable to manipulation, and increasingly disconnected from the aspirations of our people. The structure of many political parties in Africa also reflects deeper systemic weaknesses. Too often, parties are driven by short-term electoral cycles, rather than by a long-term vision for national progress. Governments spend more time undoing the work of their predecessors than building on the past gains, resulting in stagnation rather than progress. Political parties, instead of strengthening democratic institutions, have sometimes become the instrument of personal ambition, leading to a culture where governance is seen as an opportunity for wealth accumulation rather than public service. Another significant challenge is a growing polarization within African societies. Rather than fostering a culture of national consensus, political parties often deepen divisions along ethnic, religious, and regional lines. Instead of engaging in evidence-based policy making, leaders often appeal to emotions and primordial loyalties, reinforcing divisions that undermine social cohesion and national unity. This phenomenon has been particularly damaging in countries where politics has become intertwined with identity, making it difficult to build inclusive governance structures. The inability of political parties to build consensus around national priorities has weakened democratic institutions, eroded trust in governance, and created conditions for instability and conflict. The commercialization of politics is another deeply troubling trend that must be addressed. Across Africa, the financing of political parties has become increasingly dominated by a small elite of business interests, leading to governance structures that serve private wealth rather than the public good. The rising cost of elections, the influence of money in politics, and the patronage networks that fuel campaign financing have made it difficult for political parties to remain independent and accountable. When political parties become financially dependent on a few powerful individuals, decision-making becomes compromised, and governance is shaped by vested interests rather than the actual needs of the people. This dynamic not only fuels corruption, but also limits the ability of political leaders to implement policies that benefit the broader society. Equally concerning is the failure of political parties to fully embrace the aspirations of Africa's youth. With over 60% of the continent's population being under the age of 25, Africa's future will be determined by how effectively we engage young people in our political processes. However, in many countries, youth remain on the periphery of political leadership, excluded from decision-making structures, and are often used as instruments of electoral violence rather than as partners in governance. Political parties must recognize that the energy, creativity, and dynamism of young Africans are among our continent's greatest assets. If we do not create meaningful opportunities for young people to participate in politics, we risk alienating an entire generation from governance and thereby undermining the long-term stability of our democracies. Here in Ghana, I have fulfilled my promise to open up the political space and appointments to our young people. In both ministerial and appointments to state-owned institutions, we have probably assembled the youngest government in the history of Ghana. I use this platform to call on the youth who have been called to service in this administration to rise to the occasion and prove to the world that they can serve with efficiency and integrity, and that by working hard and serving with integrity, they will hold open the door for more youth to have the opportunity to serve. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this initiative could not have come at a more opportune moment. Around the world, countries are wrestling with uncertainties and challenges that arise from conflict, pandemics, self-absorbing populism, unilateralism, climate change, and also the dispersion in new technologies and digital spaces that call for a serious rethink of the extant models and values that underpin the way governance and politics works. Across Africa, these concerns have struck a distinct chord among observers who have underscored rollbacks in democratic consolidation, pointing to recent military takeovers of duly elected civilian governments and the threats to the peace in several countries, including Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which continue to inflict untold harm and destruction on civilians and infrastructure. If we are to chart a new course for Africa, one that moves beyond instability, beyond economic stagnation, and beyond political brinksmanship, then we as political leaders must be the first to change. We must recognize that our duty is not to partisan victory alone, but to the advancement of our nations. We must reject the kind of politics that thrives on polarization, misinformation, and the deliberate obstruction of progress simply because it does not originate from our own political party. We must make a fundamental choice. Do we want to be remembered as leaders who served our people, or as politicians who mostly merely served our political parties? This is a question we must ask ourselves. Under the current circumstances, it's easy to fall back into the old tropes of Afro-pessimism. These tropes, which continue to gain currency among public, international intellectuals and popular culture icons outside of the continent, are based on exaggerations and sometimes mischaracterizations about how Africa, politics, and society works. Notable amongst them is the view that rather than economic growth and peace, our democracies foment violence, corruption, and fragile institutions. Here, elections in the continent are framed as nothing short of an ethnic census, while political parties are incorrectly depicted as vehicles for ethnic domination and contestation. I'm also certain that we've all heard about the ways African electorates are more, about the words that African electorates are more amenable to hate speech and appeals to primordial ties and allegiances, other than programs and platforms that sell the bigger picture of development and transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, without downplaying the enormity of the challenges that Africa, and to a greater extent the world faces, I'm more persuaded by what Ghana has to offer in terms of democratic governance and peaceful transfer of political power, and the possibilities of a bold idea like the African Political Parties Initiative. Indeed, the election of the National Democratic Congress through a resounding victory in the 2024 elections from opposition attests to the gains of democratic resilience and the meaningful accountability that periodic elections accord to the governed. Our mandate rests on our promise to reset Ghana based on a progressive agenda that called for a boost in productivity and jobs through a 24-hour economic model, creation of a specialized bank for women-owned businesses, a big push for infrastructure development, and the need to streamline governmental agencies and to cut waste and to fight corruption in government. Through this progressive agenda, the NDC built a diverse coalition of voters across all regions of Ghana, including a resurging votes among youth and women. We secured a decisive victory that was inconceivable just about 8 years ago. While various analysts unpack the details of how our party secured this historic feat, the story of this recent democratic achievement in the 2024 elections can best be summed up in a broader story of cross-party engagement and appeal. My government continues to match this commitment to inter-party engagement. We have, for instance, launched a national dialogue on education reform. We've also launched a national dialogue on the economy, and fiscal reform. We've also launched a constitutional review planning committee to guide a review of our 1992 constitution. All these dialogues seek to build consensus around the issues that they are dealing with. I've also placed the National Development Planning Commission at the center stage of cross-party consensus building around the long-term development plan in order to secure the longevity of noble ideas that resonate across the broad mass of Ghanaian citizenry. Our commitment is a conviction to replace the extreme partisanship with a renewed sense of shared purpose to confront common problems of growth, sustainability, as well as individual and collective well-being. The role of political parties should not just be to win elections at all costs, but to create systems that guarantee stable governance, economic prosperity, and social justice for all. Envisaged within the context of democratic governance, political parties are important spaces not only for incubating new ideas and for development, but albeit important, but also critical tools for inclusivity and national unity. These goals reflect both the priorities of the National Democratic Congress-led government, which I'm proud to lead, and the aspirations for a prosperous and politically united Africa as espoused by the Africa Union's Agenda 2063. The African Political Parties Initiative vision of a non-partisan and non-ideological inter-party dialogue and a truly Pan-African approach to how political parties reflect on and address the challenges of development will be an invaluable component of how Africa embraces its present challenges and consider them as opportunities for growth. Indeed, this is a rightly groundbreaking initiative which provides a rare opportunity to break cultures of mistrust and deep divisions across political parties that undermine our capacity to confront challenges that require a collective response. Amongst its benefits, the APPI will also provide an important avenue for how political leaders can approach reform of independent institutions, like the election management bodies, our judiciary, and national development commissions, and how they foster innovative ways of promoting public participation and citizen engagement, deeper regional ties and peer learning, and also reflect on how best to adapt technologies for service delivery and accountability. This initiative is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a direct response to the urgent need for political parties across Africa to become stronger institutions that prioritize national development, democratic stability, and the economic transformation of our countries. The Africa Governance Center is spearheading this initiative and has taken on a challenge that is both ambitious and necessary, and I commend them for their foresight and commitment in making this vision become a reality. It is my hope that key stakeholders will embrace this great initiative by the Africa Governance Center as it marks the beginning of a new era, an era where political parties become partners in progress, where governance is rooted in service, and where Africa finally claims its rightful place as a strong, united, and prosperous continent. Together, let us commit to politics that is not just about winning elections, but about winning Africa's future. On this note, I have the privilege to declare the African Political Parties Initiative duly launched. Thank you.
For the resounding endorsement. Please take your seats. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And to further